In 9 through 12, we will be adding and subtracting rational expressions. To add and subtract, we must get a common denominator. You can't add fractions unless there's a common denominator. So we need to look at these denominators and get them to look the same. So we need every factor that's in the first and in the second all to be into one denominator. So I'm going to rewrite the common denominator as x plus 2 times 2x. We grab this factor and this factor, one from each. So that will be our common denominator. Now, in the numerator we have the 2 from the beginning, but the original denominator only had the x plus 2. So since we multiplied the denominator by 2x, we must multiply the numerator by that same 2x. Now this numerator had a 3 and had the 2x in the denominator. It did not have the x plus 2, so since we multiplied the denominator by x plus 2, we have to multiply the numerator by x plus 2. At this point, we can combine our like terms after we distribute the numerator. 2 times 2x is 4x, plus 3 times x, which is 3x, plus 3 times 2, which is 6. And this is all over the common denominator of x plus 2 times 2x. We can combine our like terms and get 7x plus 6 over x plus 2 times 2x. And that's as far as we can go. In number 10, to get the common denominator, we're going to have to factor first. So we can factor the denominator here. We need two factors of 10 that add to negative 7. So the two factors, the two factors of 10 that add to negative 7 are 5 and 2. Now they both have to be negative because they multiply to a positive but add to a negative 7. And then we need to factor this denominator. We need two factors of 15 that add to negative 8. So in this case we're going to need 5 and 3, but again they're both going to have to be negative because they multiply to a positive and add to a negative 8. So now to get the common denominator we need to make sure we account for every factor in these denominators. So we'll do y minus 5 from the first and y minus 2 from the first denominator. Since we have a y minus 5 already, we don't need to add another one because these two are the same factors. We just need the y minus 3. So y minus 5, y minus 2 times y minus 3 is our common denominator. Okay, so we had the 2y in the numerator. So what we did not have in the denominator was the y minus 3. So I need to put in y minus 3 into the numerator because I multiplied it into this denominator. We keep the 3y that was originally in our problem, and we look to see what's missing from this denominator that we now have. We have the y minus 3 and the y minus 5, but we didn't have a y minus 2, so we need to multiply the numerator by the y minus 2. Now we can distribute into the numerator, through the numerator. 2y times y is 2y squared minus 6y plus 3y times y, which is 3y squared minus 6y. And this is all over the same common denominator of y minus 5, y plus minus 2, and y minus 3. We can combine our like terms in the numerator. The 2y squared and the 3y squared are like terms. That becomes a 5y squared minus 12y. These two add together to negative 12y. And we can write that over y minus 5 times y minus 2 times y minus 3. We could factor out the numerator. The y can factor out. We can end up with 5y minus 12 over y minus 5 times y minus 2 times y minus 3. Since nothing factors or cancels out, we can leave our answer like that. In number 11, we're subtracting. So the first thing I would do when we're subtracting is to change the subtraction sign to a positive and move the negative with the expression above the second expression. That way we shouldn't forget to distribute that negative sign. So we now have adding fractions, but we have the negative with the 4. So we need a common denominator. The common denominator here is going to be made up of the two denominators, 2y minus 3 times y plus 3. 2y minus 3 times y plus 3. Okay, so we originally had a y plus 2, and we had the 2y minus 3 in the denominator, so we multiplied by y plus 3, so I have to multiply the numerator by y plus 3. We had the y plus 3 in the denominator here. The negative 4 stays in the numerator, but we also now have to multiply it by the 2y minus 3. So now I can multiply out the numerator. We're going to have to FOIL the y plus 2 times the y plus 3. So I'm going to get y squared plus 3y plus 2y plus 6. And then I can distribute the negative 4 through here. Negative 4 times 2y is negative 8y. Negative 4 times 3, negative 3 is positive 12. And this is all over my denominator of 2y minus 3 times y plus 3. Combine like terms in the numerator. Y squared, 3y, 2y, and a negative 8y. We got 5 minus 8, which is a negative 3y. 6 and 12 is plus 18. All over 2y minus 3 times y plus 3. Now we could try to factor this, but there's no factors of positive 18 that will get us a negative 3, so we can leave our answer just like this. In number 12, I need to factor to get a common denominator. So I'll factor both of my denominators here. Start with the easy one. We'll divide out a 2. So we have 2 times parentheses y minus 5. This denominator I can divide out a 2. Take out a GCF. I'll be left with y squared minus y minus 20. And you can notice that this can be further factored because we can find factors of negative 20 that add to negative 1, which is negative 5 and positive 4. So this denominator has the factors 2, y minus 5, and y plus 4 in it. This denominator has a 2 and a y minus 5. Notice these two denominator factors are found in the first denominator, so the only thing we need to do to the second denominator is to multiply by y plus 4. So if we multiply this denominator by y plus 4, we'd have to multiply the numerator by y plus 4 as well. So now I can make this negative sign a positive sign and take that negative up with that 4, and therefore when I distribute I can remember to distribute the negative 4. So my common denominator is 2 times y minus 5 times y plus 4. And I can just keep my numerator from the first expression because I did not change my denominator here. This one I have to multiply through the negative 4 times the y plus 4, which will give us negative 4y minus 16. I can now combine my like terms in the numerator. The 2y minus 4y is negative 2y. Negative 46 minus 16 is a negative 62, all over 2 times y minus 5, y plus 4. But notice we have a factor of 2 here in this that we can pull out, and we have a 2 in the denominator, which will end up canceling. So we can factor out a 2. We'll be left with negative y minus 31 divided by 2 times y minus 5 times y plus 4. We can now cancel these 2's, and our final simplified expression is negative y minus 31 over y minus 5 times y plus 4.